Test, test, test.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen and councillors and the Mayor. Just a quick reminder to please set your mobile phones to silent during tonight's live stream council meeting. The meeting will be broadcast live on Facebook and YouTube and the Banyule City Council website. Thank you for your cooperation.
Just hang on. It's sending. I'm waiting for it. Stand by call.
Standing by. Don't worry about the beep.
And going live.
Okay, tell us now. Go live. Sound on.
Yeah, sound is on. Where's the,
Oh, go live. Give me a live picture.
where's the live? Oh, you want a picture? Go live.
Standing by. We apologise for this hold up. We will be going live shortly. We're going to proceed and record the meeting.
Thank you. Welcome all to the 24th of March 2025 Council meeting. I open the meeting just after 7 p.m. Our meeting is being held on the traditional land of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people, and on behalf of Banyule City Council, I acknowledge them as the traditional custodians. I'd also like to pay my respects to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders, past, present and emerging, and those who are joining us today. Our community is made up of diverse cultures, beliefs, abilities, bodies, sexualities, ages and genders. We are committed to access, equity and participation and rights for everyone, principles which empower, foster harmony and increase the well-being of an inclusive community. I will now pass on to the Chief Executive Officer, Ms Alison Beckwith, who will read out the formalities.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome all to this Ordinary Council meeting. My name is Alison Beckwith, as the Mayor indicated, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer here at Banyule. Tonight's meeting is being held in person in accordance with the provision of Council's Governance Rules and Local Government Act 2020. The meeting is being also live streamed via Council's website and Facebook page. Those of you joining at home, the live stream is not interactive. Any comments or private messages directed to us while the stream is live will not be presented to the Council or have a bearing on the conduct of tonight's meeting. Council's request to speak methods continue to allow participation of our residents without them having to attend in person as well. I'll just take you through some rules of our public participation guidelines. Public question time will occur at the conclusion of tonight's meeting. If a member of the public who submitted a question is present at the time, they are welcome to read their question as submitted or have their question read on their behalf by a member of the staff. If not present, the question will not be read out. However, all public questions and responses will be included in the meeting minutes following tonight's meeting. I just remind you that no statement may be derogatory, defamatory or directed to an individual councillor, member of the staff, ratepayer or member of the public. Those of you requesting to speak tonight, a 2-minute time limit does apply. The timer will be used and a warning will sound at the 1.5-minute mark, and officers, if reading out on your behalf, will sum up for the last 30 seconds. We ask that members of the gallery please check their phones and ensure that it's either switched off or on silent mode to avoid any disruptions tonight. I would also want to remind everyone that Council has a zero tolerance for any form of bullying, harassment or violence, and everyone present in the gallery, including community, members of Council staff and councillors, are expected to respect the individual views of all others, irrespective of their own view held, and respectfully allow others to participate in tonight's meeting. I do ask kindly if any members of the public gallery depart the chamber while the meeting is still in progress. We ask that you please do not hold conversations with others until you're outside the building. Noise from the foyer areas, both outside the chamber and downstairs, do reverberate into the chamber while the live stream is happening and does impact those listening at home. So I thank you in advance for that. I will now introduce the councillors in attendance tonight, and I'll start to my left. We have Councillor Matt Wood, Councillor Alicia Curry, Councillor Mary O'Kane, and Councillor Alison Champion. I will now introduce the councillors to my right. The Mayor, Councillor Elizabeth Neely, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Peter Castaldo, Councillor Rick Garotti, Councillor Alida McKern and Councillor Mark De Pasquale. This evening the councillors are joined by the executive team. So over to the right side we have Mark Giglio, Director of Corporate Services, and Darren Bennett, Director of Assets and City Services, and over to my left Natasha Swan, Director of City Development, and Joseph Tobacco, Director of Community Wellbeing. The councillors are also joined by our support team from the governance and IT areas, and we thank you for participating in tonight's meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, there were no apologies this evening and no leave of absence. Confirmation of the minutes from the ordinary council meeting held on the 3rd of March 2025. Can I please have a councillor to move and second? Moved, Councillor Garotti. Seconded, Councillor Di Pasquale. I now put the motion. All those in favour? The motion is carried. As required at any other meeting of council, councils must declare a conflict of interest at the start of the meeting and leave the meeting when the item is presented to council. They will be required to leave and return when the item has been resolved. At any point through the meeting, if any other councillor recognises they have a general or material interest, they can flag that at that point and then follow the same procedure. Are there any disclosures of interest, councillors? No? No, there are no disclosures. Disclosures of interest for staff. Officers that are present, I now ask whether you have a conflict of interest in any items presented to council. To the CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a conflict with confidential item 11.1, outcomes from the CEO Employment Matters Committee, held on the 19th of February 2025. So I'm declaring a conflict of interest and I won't take part in those discussions tonight.
Thank you. So Alison will declare that material conflict of interest and not be present during the deliberations on that item. And the material conflict of interest is a direct conflict of interest where Alison Beckwith could stand to gain or suffer a loss depending on the outcome of the recommendations that are here at council tonight. The nature of the material interest relates to her employment and performance matters specifically, and due to the conflict, she is not involved in the review of the report presented for decision this evening. Okay. Just before we move into the business of the meeting, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the recent Kosani fire tragedy in Macedonia that claimed 59 lives and left many others injured. Macedonia has declared a 7-day period of national mourning, and I send sympathy for the lives lost and extend support for the grieving Macedonian community within our municipality and beyond. Okay, just pausing for a moment there. It's not good to hear bad news and then move straight into business. There are no items of urgent business. There is one petition this evening. The petition is assistance with the reinstatement of the container deposit scheme at Cameron Parade, Milk Bar, Watsonia North. There are no speakers on this item. Are there any questions of officers, councillors, before we move a motion? No? There's an officer report before you in the papers. We have Councillor Garotti to move. Do I have a seconder?
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, sorry, move.
I'd like to move with an amendment that at point 3, council write to the Honourable Colin Brooks, member for Bundoora, to raise the concerns of the community and seek a meeting to discuss their concern.
Thank you, Councillor.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Garotti. The seconder accept those changes. Councillor Garotti, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So at the Cameron Parade Milk Bar, there was an over-the-counter collection service that was operated by the milk bar owner, and it was considered to be very successful. Unfortunately, arising from what I understand as little as just one complaint from the community, that triggered a process with council and Visy and state that ultimately resulted in the closure of that service. And there's been an overwhelming response from that community. I've probably received over 100 emails and phone calls, and there's off this petition here as well. I'm sure the petitioner would like to be here to address the council, but she's a small business owner running a small business, and so is obviously there at the milk bar, but clearly looking for an opportunity to reinstate that over-the-counter service. Council is supportive and went through a process with the milk bar owner to get it to a position that would be appropriate for the community. And now, hopefully, with this petition, and if we can have a meeting with Colin Brooks, and we can apply some pressure to Visy and encourage them to revisit their decision. But it's a very valued service for the community and a form of ancillary income as well for a milk bar owner. And as we know, it's tough doing business out there at the moment, and this could be the sort of the tipping point as to whether or not that milk bar stays open long term, that ancillary income. Yep, so very happy to be moving as I've put forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Garotti. Does the seconder wish to speak? Councillor Champion.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, just very briefly, milk bar owners do a lot of long hours. It's a bit lonely. They do run the business themselves, so this was obviously an ancillary opportunity for them to create a little bit more income, an innovative opportunity, and happy to support this to be returned to the milk bar to support their business, which I understand is really appreciated there in Cameron Parade. It's a very popular milk bar. So thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak?
Yes.
Councillor McKern.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, I'd like to ask a question of the mover. Councillor Garotti, you mentioned that there was one complaint that caused the removal of this deposit scheme. Can you explain what the nature of the complaint was?
It was...
Was that a question more of an officer?
Yep. Well,
Okay.
would you prefer?
Can be referred.
Well, it was a complaint around noise, but there's probably some particulars around that complaint and the nature of the complainant that I'm happy to share with you privately, Councillor.
Okay. Thank you. It's always good to know what complaints are received. It doesn't necessarily mean that the complaints received outweigh the benefit of the function of a service that's being delivered. And certainly we do have in this council a towards zero waste strategy that we're working to, and container deposit schemes help achieve, in my opinion, that target. So I'll be supporting the receipt of this petition tonight, and interested to know the officer's report feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKern. Does any other councillor wish to speak? I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 3.1, Council Plan 2021 to 25, 4-year highlights, action plan and progress reports. There are no speakers on this item. Before we move the motion, I'll ask councillors for questions before the discussion. I'm now calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Moved. Councillor Wood, seconded Councillor O'Kane. Councillor Wood, do you wish to speak? Councillor O'Kane? Does any other councillor wish to speak? No? I'll speak then. This plan shows transparency, accountability and long-term development to meet the needs of our community and the future growth, and that we are sustainable as a council, which is very important. I think there's a lot to be celebrated. There's so much in there, it's hard to really pull out a few. I just went in order of the way the report was presented. Our First Nations Spirit Trail in Heidelberg West, very, very lovely. Our Youth Fest, celebrating older adults, our progress and our corporate emissions plan. There's been a number of community infrastructure projects completed. So, you know, just to mention a few small ones, the public toilets in McLeod, the new boardwalk at Yarra Flats, the pavilion improvements at Greensborough War Memorial Park. So Council is also reviewing the 35 recommendations from the think tank, and this will be incorporated into the future plan with that very important community consultation. I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. I'm getting there. Item 3.2, Cemeteries Trust Operation Report. There are no speakers on this item. Before we move the motion, are there any questions? No? Do I have a mover? Moved Councillor Di Pasquale, seconded Councillor McKern. Councillor Di Pasquale, do you wish to speak? Councillor McKern? Does any other councillor wish to speak? No? I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 3.3, Cemeteries Trust Financial Statement. There are no speakers. Are there any questions of officers? I'm now calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Moved Councillor Di Pasquale, seconded Councillor O'Kane. Councillor Di Pasquale, do you wish to speak? Councillor O'Kane? No? Does any other councillor wish to speak? No? Okay. Sometimes we don't need to speak to every report. With this one, it's a good financial result due to, but maybe not for a good reason, due to increased burials and ashes interments and also the sale of a vault. So, you know, instead of a $40,000 operational loss, it's $81. But yeah, it's I wasn't going to say it, but yeah, not for the best reasons. Put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 3.4, adoption of Council's advisory committees. There are 7 speakers on this item. Okay, the first speaker is, I hope I pronounce this, Jean Mertens from the Banyule Bicycle Users Group. Sorry about pronunciation, if you could correct me on that. Will address council in person and he's speaking against the recommendation. You just push the button. You have 2 minutes to speak. I can't see. Yep, that's it. You've done it.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to council. My name is Jean Mertens. I am speaking against the motion because of the absence of an active transport committee in the current plan. I am a bike rider and I use my bike for transport as well as for my health and well-being and maintaining social connections. I am a member of Banyule Bicycle Users Group on our committee and our Improving Connectivity subcommittee. I believe an active transport committee could assist council to advocate, prioritise, plan and implement improved active transport in the city. Firstly, by obtaining the $2 million Safe Local Roads and Streets program offered to all Victorian councils and recently endorsed by Darebin Council, our neighbours. Secondly, I draw council's attention to the Frankston City First campaign, seeking $11.7 million of federal funding towards a package of initiatives that strengthen connections within their city and to neighbouring municipalities, including walking and biking pathways that integrate key suburbs with their city centre. They have more of a city, we're kind of a bit dispersed compared to Frankston, but finally, it is important that council uses innovative strategies to plan for the increased population we can expect in our neighbourhoods before 2030. Residents are already coping with congestion on our roads and need alternative ways of moving safely from home to and between activity centres, schools, sporting and cultural facilities. I am convinced council would gain significant benefit for our community from a committee focused on improving connectivity and active transport. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Our next speaker is Michelle Jovis, who will address council in person and he's speaking against the recommendation. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. For background, I have been on BCAC from 2018 through to September 2024, and it was a very worthwhile committee and functions well and has not really impacted by these changes. However, I have concerns about the proposal to reduce the number of population and advisory committees from 8 to 4. And my concern is that were the committees that have been disbanded, such as Inclusive Banyule and the Disability Inclusion Committee and others, were they consulted about the changes? As I've discussed this with members of some of these committees, and they tell me they were not. They are concerned that a number of issues may not have been responded to or considered. The new Large Connected Communities Committee will have insufficient time to look at agenda items in depth. Approximately 20 minutes each for social justice, age-friendly, disability, multicultural issues, and LGBTIQA+ issues every 3 months at a time of considerable community change and unrest. Pressures are just growing exponentially, yet we seem to be putting less time into discussing social cohesion issues that impact all of us. What time would this committee have to properly consider action plans, implementation updates, or subcommittee working group reports? There is only time for this to be a tick and flick review committee, which is a disservice to everyone. And there is also concern that in a large committee, that more strident, more passionate voices will drown out quieter members and dominate the agenda. And how will a committee that meets so infrequently, covering such a huge range of topics, be able to evaluate the success or not of the various council policies and action plans? And how is council going to be accountable for the implementation of the various connected communities action plans? And there were also concerns about the champions of working groups of up to 20 people. How do you become a member? How is this advertised? Also concerning is why the previous Inclusive Banyule Committee has been left out of the 4 champion groups. This is a committee that has dealt with justice and social issues and state government priorities, including access to housing, social policy, gambling, reducing harm from alcohol, smoking and vaping.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. We could sum up.
So these are really significant community issues that council should be advocating for. And I'm just wondering if one of those committees is actually being replaced with something else, because perhaps that's the reason.
Okay, thank you.
So,
thank you, Michelle. Pippa Griffith will address council in person and is speaking against the recommendation.
Me.
Thank you, Pippa.
I did have a question for the last speaker. No, that's okay. Sorry, Pippa. I just had a question for Michelle, if that's okay. No, that's all right. Just listening, you mentioned consultation. At the start of your 2 minutes, you mentioned consultation and that the committees felt that they hadn't been consulted with. I just wanted to maybe ask from the appropriate director if A, it was required, and B, was any done? Was there any feedback at all from the last committees?
Thank you.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor Champion. At the end of the last term, officers prepared a report for Council which considered all of the feedback from the participants of our most recent committees. The feedback from those committee members was incorporated into the development of what's being considered this evening. So hopefully that answers your question. Does Council have an obligation or a legislative requirement to have committees? No, it doesn't, ordinarily. Nonetheless, I can confirm that the feedback from previous committees has been considered in this instance.
Okay. Well, I just must have spoken with people that weren't available at that time.
Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. Pippa Griffith. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't believe this motion goes far enough. If advisory committees have been effective, why not expand the programme and take advantage of the lived experience and expert knowledge in the community? for other things that council's involved in? Why isn't there a committee in the health or built environment spaces, or one that works where the two issues intersect? How the local environment we live in affects our health. Very recent research shows how the built environment impacts population health. They use gestational diabetes, which leads to large babies, impacting the mother directly during delivery, and lifelong health impacts for the child. Pregnant women and new babies are very sensitive to the environment, and their health can change quite quickly. So it's a powerful way to assess that environment. It's not just mothers and babies. That's also a good indicator of the health of the rest of the population. Significant parts of Banyule are in the second and third quartiles, where the first quartile is the best. So that's nothing to be proud of, and shows us we have a lot of work to do to improve things. There's potential for a committee or working party to capitalise on the experience residents have in their locality, to work on translating council policies into on-the-ground reality, creating a built environment that accommodates the increase in population and improves the environment for everyone in ways that enable people to improve or at least maintain their health and well-being. We owe it to our community to do everything we can to make our environments more livable. Instead of this, we're being offered emerging issues forums. The budget for these is significant. 2 forums will cost the equivalent of 4 committees with associated working groups for a year. Emerging issues such as housing and homelessness are important and urgent. I think a better way to deal with such issues could be through creating working groups that can be established quickly and meet regularly over, say, 3, 6 or 9 months. Working groups that can be pulled together quickly for specific purposes could be much more effective than large, expensive forums. Thank you.
Thank you, Pippa. Okay, moving on to our next speaker. Brian Grace from Good Governance Banyule will address council in person, and he's speaking against the recommendation. Thank you, Brian. You're there. Quick.
Thank you very much. My name is Brian Grace. I'm a resident of Greensborough and have been for 48 years. I'm also president of Good Governance Banyule. Good Governance has looked at this, the ideas that council has put forward, and we don't support it. We don't support it because committees are a connection to the community. The people sit on these committees and give a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it's free advice from experts in their field. And by abandoning the committees, what you're doing is you're saying to the community, well, we really don't want to hear what you need to say on these committees. And what you're really doing is putting up a wall. And I guess in the last elections to all the councillors that were elected, not one of you put on your pamphlets that you were going to get rid of committees. And it's an important issue because had you said that, had you put it on that I'm going to vote against having community committees, how many votes would you have got? Well, I doubt you would have got any, you would have lost some because people would have turned away. So you're making decisions about getting rid of committees that is not supported by the community. People want to be involved in their local community. They want to be involved with the council. But by getting rid of committees, you're really putting up walls that don't need to be there. And I'm prepared to take any questions.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a question? Okay. Yes, Councillor Castaldo, you have a question?
I've got a question for Mr. Walters. Did you... Brian Grace, sorry.
You can call me Mr. Walters.
Mr. Grace, I meant. Mr. Grace. Just quickly, did you look at the working groups that were related to the committees, and you don't believe that the working groups are...
they're not as effective or efficient as an out-and-out committee, because the committees talk directly to councillors who usually sit on these committees, but not the working groups, because there may not be councillors there. They don't have to be there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
For
No.
Mr Walters.
No. Thank you,
I
Brian.
know a Brian Walters.
Okay, moving on. It's an eerie night tonight. It's the weather. A written statement will now be read on behalf of Janelle Ryan by Darren Bennett, Director of Assets and City Services. Janelle is speaking for the recommendation.
I've been a member of the Banyule Arts and Culture Advisory Committee since 2019. My membership has also extended to serving on sub-working groups responsible for providing policy development, advice and assessing applications for arts and cultural grants. I have a lifelong association with the arts, cultural development and creative industries as a performing artist, a tertiary qualified arts manager and working in paid and voluntary roles for arts, events and entertainment organisations, including the City of Melbourne and the Victorian Government. I believe BACAC plays an important role in keeping arts and cultural experiences relevant and meaningful in Banyule. This is because committee membership is comprised of many arts sector professionals whose collective strategic knowledge and sector expertise has assisted in council developing and delivering a strong arts and culture offer. During my time on BACAC, I've seen this expertise utilised to make detailed recommendations on technical specifications for the art spaces at Ilch, ensuring a museum standard exhibition space and other professional presentation spaces. Assure that arts works acquired into the Banyule City Collection is significant and collectible and meets the criteria of the collection policy. Develop a public art policy that articulates the value of public art and has contributed to more art around Banyule. Delivered a smart and flexible arts and cultural strategy that will embed cultural outcomes for the community into the future. I encourage Council to re-establish the Advisory Committee program, including the Arts and Cultural Committee, so that access to creative industries, knowledge and advice from members who also understand what it means to be part of the Banyule community remains strong.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Marcus Wigham will now address Council in person. He's speaking for the recommendation. Thank you, Marcus. You could turn on your microphone, please. Yep, it's on.
Is this on?
Yes.
Good. The points that I want to make are that I'm glad to see there's at least one committee remaining. Consequently, I am supporting that, but it is totally inadequate. The opportunities to have a genuine, continuing two-way engagement with the Council via the advisory committee processes are valued for several reasons, as advisory committees offer a valuable channel not easily duplicated by any other approaches. They build relationships between staff and the presiding council member in a manner which, with genuine engagement, impossible in 2-minute presentations limited to agenda items. Community expertise is free and thus considerably cheaper than the usually comparable capability consultants for specialised areas could be secured for the Ratepayer Committee. We do have some experts in this community and they're very happy to help. But it does require more than the occasional preset and often third-party surveys to build the knowledge and the mutual credibility between council and the community. The temptation to do surveys and call it engagement does not permit the learning process needed for trust and credibility to be built. The think tank experience should have made that clear, but was, as far as my consultations have reached, not treated by the members as including a duty to bring in others, but otherwise a good example of the modern style of restricted population sampling practice. So thank you. The building of sustained bridges to community members on a continuing basis is one of the essential steps that I and my co-author identified and are critical, as absolutely critical in our recent book, examining on how to recover trust and mutual respect and mutual knowledge between the public service and the community. It's available from the Mandarin under the title of The Expertise Deficit. And I hope that some of it and some of the observations will be seen as constructive I repeat, I support the presentation insofar as it keeps any committee, but I indicate that you are basically cutting off your nose to spite your face. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the final speaker, a written statement will be read on behalf of Melissa Murphy-Webster by Natasha Swan, Director of City Development. Melissa is speaking for the recommendation.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. It's great to see an amalgamation of committees to focus on championing key topics. I'd love to know that there is a diversity of opinions within these groups, fostering robust discussions and the inclusion of new perspectives. I also understand there may be a fifth committee dedicated to sustainable outcomes, addressing concerns such as financial issues, population decline and other factors directly impacting individuals and families. I believe this would be a valuable addition to the effort.
Thank you. Councillors, before we move to the motion, are there any questions? There's an officer... Yes, sorry, I didn't see. Oh, question or moving? Okay. Councillor Grotti moved. Do I have a seconder? Moved with amendments?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So moving point number 1, just with the following changes. A, appoint a councillor as chairperson for each advisory committee, except in the case of the First Nations Committee, which shall have a co-chairing arrangement. Point number 2, as is, and just confirming that there'll be a report back to council after the terms of reference are considered. We'll move on to point number 3, endorses the establishment of the following committees in terms of reference for the period of June 2025 and September 2029. Environment and Climate Action Committee, Arts and Culture Advisory Committee, Connected Communities Advisory Committee and Sustainable Living Advisory Committee. Note that Council will receive a further report on the draft terms of reference, which will be refined with the newly recruited advisory committee members, along with any name changes for adoption. 5 and 6 as is. So moved, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grotti. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor McKern. Councillor Grotti, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to make a couple of brief comments. Look, we've certainly heard feedback from the community around, 4 not being enough, and particularly the need to have a committee that really engages the expertise that lies within our community, which has been the motivation for putting forward a Sustainable Living Advisory Committee. I think we had Marcus Wickham address the chamber, but I believe that it may be Professor Marcus Wickham, given your background, and that's just reflective of the calibre of individuals and expertise that we have in the community. In Professor Wiggum's case, in transport matters, but in many other cases, it might be around housing, it may be around cost of living, it may be around planning and strategic planning. And so by structuring this in this way, we want to have a committee that can draw in that expertise, and as our speaker from Good Governance, Banyul, pointed out, to have that frank discussion and interaction with the elected representatives and that exchange of ideas, and to tap in to the free expertise that exists within the community. So I think by what we're putting forward, we're trying to streamline a little bit what was there previously, but also have sufficient breadth in terms of topic and in terms of focus area to properly engage with our community and to draw that expertise. And all I could say is that if this is accepted by the rest of the council, I would strongly encourage members of the community to put yourself forward for where you think you can have the biggest contribution. I suppose a few other things that I just wanted to point out is that we are going to have those terms of reference go to the committees that are selected, because we think it's important that the committees, and then by extension the community, own the work that it will be doing. Not council saying this is how it's going to be, but the committee being able to do that. And that's a leaf, to be honest, that we've taken out of the First Nations committee around reflecting on the success of that and the strength of those committee members saying that they're empowered and that they're in control. And we're saying, hang on a tick, we should extend that to the rest of our community and give everyone, all the other committees, the opportunity for input. So I'm excited about what we're doing, and I'm really eager, hopefully, to move forward with this and to do some new and innovative things in Banyule. Thank you, Mayor.
Do you have a quick question?
I have a question for a relevant officer. Traditionally, we've brought back committee members back to council for acceptance. In this case, the amendment suggests that they're established before they come back to council.
Sorry, Director.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thanks for the question, Councillor Castaldo. It would be ordinary practice for the name of applicants to be put forward to council for consideration and adoption before those committees are operational.
And do you have another question?
I've got a question for the mover, whether they're willing to accept a change of name for Part 3C instead of connected communities, diversity and inclusivity, inclusive advisory committee.
Sorry, Councillor Grotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Happy to respond to that. Look, certainly take on board that request of Councillor Castaldo, and certainly one of the objects of that committee is to promote a diversity and inclusion. But I really like the name that the officers have come up with. I think it has a power and a strength to it, and it's about connecting council and connecting our community. So I would be leaving it as is, but with the sincerest respect to Councillor Castaldo.
Thank you for the question. We have Councillor Curry with another question.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Just as we're going through the process of adopting our committees this year, could the relevant officer answer the question, if we have a committee in place that we adopt tonight and it isn't a working committee, we just think that it needs change, what would be the first opportunity to rehash that? And also adding to that in reverse is, what options do councillors have to add a committee where we see the need and it hasn't been adopted within this structure?
To the Director, Joseph Tobacco.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor Curry. To your last question, Council is empowered to consider establishing any form of committee or any tool that might be necessary to respond to a particular matter and issue at any point in time through its term, so it's not constrained just to this decision before Council this evening. There are many other tools also available to Council under the Community Engagement Policy, and also the development of any policy or strategy might include input from councillors around the types of target audiences that may be sought to provide input to Council at that particular point in time. In terms of these proposed committees operating, there will be periodical reports which will be coming back to the Chamber, which will outline the minutes and the decisions or recommendations made by each of those committees. So that naturally in itself provides an opportunity for officers to both brief Council and to bring back any concerns or any issues that may be prosecuted by councillors in terms of the continuation of those committees or the augmentation or changes to those committees.
Thank you. Just before we move to the second, are there any more questions? Councillor McKern.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Councillor Garotti has actually spoken very well in support of the advisory committees. And I also think our speakers tonight, every one of you has actually presented a solid case as to not only why we should continue with our advisory committees, but as to why we need to expand them. And you've recognised the gaps in the model that's been included in the officer report, which essentially establishes a more of a truncated suite of advisory committees, and also looks to address planning matters in a series of emerging issues forums. While I think it's a good idea to have community forums in addition to advisory committees to discuss particular matters of current interest, I'm not convinced that they have the ability to deliver the tangible benefits and outcomes which advisory committees are empowered to do. We're looking at sustainable living as an additional advisory committee which would cover off on some of the subjects which were raised tonight, including housing, heritage, active transport, public realm, urban design, and others that fall within the planning remit. And why an advisory committee instead of an emerging forum? Greater ongoing attention and greater powers than a forum. The forums are proposed to be discussion events. They don't have the powers of delivering recommendations through to the council group for consideration and possible adoption. That is a very significant distinction. So for this reason tonight, I will be supporting this motion. I think it's a very exciting innovation for this council and progressive, and gives our community, particularly those who come with specialist skills that we can benefit from, an opportunity to advance a range of planning issues. So looking forward to it, and hopefully councillor colleagues will support it too. Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor McKern. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Champion.
Thanks, Mayor. Hearing and listening, hearing all the words that have been written and spoken this evening, it is clear that this council does support committees. We do hear you. We know you are very highly qualified, you are expertise in your fields, and we do value that. And we want you to contribute constructively to our home. If we did not, there would be no item 3.4 on our agenda this evening. There would be no feedback from last committees that was very well considered by our officers. There would be no time invested by our officers in a modification of our committees. There would be no briefings to councillors on the work that was done to be able to create what is in front of us. And we certainly would not have invested significant amount of time, either today or in the last several weeks, on this item. So the fact that there's been a lot around item 3.4 before it's even come here tells me that we do value you and your expertise, and we do want you to contribute. So as Councillor Grotti has said, we're hoping that you who do want to be involved, become involved. We'd love to see your names on those lists. So I will be supporting this motion this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Champion. Councillor O'Kane.
Through you, Mayor. I'd just like to, I suppose, back what my fellow councillor Alison Champion has just said. We've spent an enormous amount of time talking and debating and trying to work out how we can be as inclusive of all these really central issues as we possibly can. And in saying that, we absolutely do take essential what our community members say. I just wanted to have mention a word or say a word in support of the Sustainable Living Advisory Committee, because I think it puts a lot of, it has the capacity to address a lot of issues, not just from a planning and design perspective, but also from a very human perspective, and it puts human, whether households or homelessness, at the centre of it. And it enables us to capture a lot of really vital, important issues that can't otherwise be discussed in any of the other committees. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Kane. Councillor Curry.
Thanks, Mayor. So I just want to start with what my expectations was when we started the talks on committees. We've got 9 councillors, 3 new councillors on board. We all had ideas, we all wanted to support committees, and how that structure has come about and what we're seeing is the result of a lot of conversations, a lot of ideas. We are not going to come to a position where all of us agree on every single committee, and we would like to see more. We have opportunity to add more committees through the options that were presented by Mr. Tobacco. But what I wanted to see through the committees was voices that we don't normally hear. Banyule runs a lot of consultation, and we might debate whether we think that's good consultation or not. But the point of committees for me was getting on board those voices that will struggle to respond to normal channels of consultation. And so people with lived experience that offer us various views. And when we have those views competing in a room, I don't feel that we are hearing those voices of the vulnerable and the people potentially that need our assistance to get those voices across the table. And we might be talking about homelessness and topics of interest that Council have got as their priority. And having a committee such as Sustainable Living, we are diluting those voices. So I'm actually not supportive of an amalgamation of committees, and although I admire a lot of the ideas that have been put forward, and there is merit to a lot of those, for me, in my mind, I want to support those voices that we're not hearing. And if we're going to put this open for 20 places on a committee, then how many of those voices are actually going to be representative of those smaller number of voices? So I would have liked to see the committees retain as age-friendly. I would have liked to see a youth committee. These are people that are not turning up to council meetings. We hear from them less. I still would have liked to see a public health and wellbeing committee. I'm not really supportive, and even if this goes across the line, I will be invested into getting those voices across the table.
Okay, please sum up, Councillor.
Thank you. Sorry, Mayor. So I'm looking forward. I think that it is not required at this point, and I would like to see Council rehash that number D, and we can offer those in future to bring further committees to the table. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. Committees are a vital opportunity for council to listen, learn and lead. Those who engage with the committees are obviously proud, local, passionate and typically well informed. And the contributions are valuable and should be recognised and respected. This is complicated because our shared commitment as a working group are committed to engaging with our residents. So rest assured the conversations that have led us to this point have been robust. The conversation was born from questions regarding the broad nature of the previous committees in conjunction with Think Tank, Shaping Banyule and the overall effectiveness. The opportunity now is to strengthen our engagement with our community. We're not throwing it away. It's appropriate to challenge what has evolved to this point and strengthen what's worked well. I've got a couple of points to make about what's been presented. Firstly, I think it's important as a first-time councillor to declare that I fully support the First Nations Committee and remain committed to its work going forward. On the environment and climate action, I'm currently undertaking the Leading Climate Emergency workshop with Councillor O'Kane and Councillor Curry. And it's a critical space, and Council's right to insist on a direct strategy to engage, address and combat climate change. Arts and culture, I acknowledge I have much to learn and looking forward to the committee teaching me that. Beyond these, I've been strongly advocating for two key issues. The first is the shared use of open space. We need to bring together all users of our parks, dog owners, sports groups, rec users and the like, to develop a more consistent and inclusive approach to managing these spaces across our city. The other is active transport, and I thank Mrs Mertens for her comments and the commitment wearing your bug riding jersey here tonight, and particularly the reference you made to the LGA's other work. With a rapidly growing city, including an additional 1,800 houses per year until 2050, and the introduction of the North East Link, we have a unique opportunity this term to rethink mobility for the future of Banyule. I'll wrap up, Mayor, thanks. Public transport integration, including the pressing question of whether the suburban rail loop will extend to Banyule and what that looks like in a generation, is upon us now. These topics are integral to our city's livability, and I'm pleased to say that they do appear in the workings of the Sustainable Living Advisory Committee. That'll do for me. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Councillor Castaldo.
Yeah, I'd like to acknowledge the tremendous amount of work and thought and effort from all councillors that have gone into this process. I'm supportive of the 4 committees that were recommended by officers, and also for when required, special interest areas forums to occur as well. And I'm very supportive of the intention of a planning committee, which Councillor McKern has worked tirelessly on as well. But when all of the elements that are considered in the Sustainable Living Advisory Committee are included, to have such a range of subject matter tried to be represented by 20 people, I think is completely unworkable and won't go to achieving those very important planning conversations that need to be had. So I'm not very comfortable with Amendment Part D and 4, and I won't be able to support the recommendation before us this evening on those grounds, but have an alternative motion to move if this one doesn't pass. Another very important element, I always like to think we're moving forward, making a more inclusive, diverse and equitable community. And tonight, we're taking some very important elements out of the names of very important community groups. That's diversity and inclusivity. Both of those were in the original name for the Connected Community Advisory Committee, but this version that's coming before us tonight, that's been taken out. I think we're at great risk to following down the path of America, Trump and Elon Musk, gutting out what is critically important to a functioning, inclusive, diverse and equitable community. So I'm not going to be comfortable recommending anything that takes those elements out and replaces it with a generic word that might bring upon a collection of people that have nothing to do with those important areas. So I won't be able to support this, but very supportive of committees which are vital lifeblood of this council.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Di Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is one of those items where 2 minutes just isn't enough, especially with our speakers this evening. I think back to when Councillor Garotti and I were elected onto this council, we only had one population committee, and that was BEAC. And since then, council has made the decision, sometimes individual councillors made the decision to start up new committees. And it seemed to me like it just, someone made a decision and then we were deciding, okay, yes, let's add that committee, let's add that committee, let's add that committee. And we got to a point where we had so many committees and we were trying to gather the information in a concise way to use it correctly. An example of that is that those in the gallery may remember that through the last term, all the committee reports were brought up to council meetings all as a block. All the committees, all at the one item. So if a community member wanted to speak on 2 or 3 different recommendations, they only had 2 minutes. They're not going to, it wasn't enough. Likewise with councillors, if we wanted to speak on, 2 or 3 recommendations from different committees, we didn't have enough time to do that. So what happened is that officer impost and time and the amount of information coming in from these committees was too much to deal with it correctly. Now, this is the first time we've reviewed the committee structure ever. So this is a time where we need to sit back, come up with these decisions, put them into action, and then see whether they are serving us going forward. This is not a set forever and forget. It's never going to be that way, because the information back from the committees is so valuable and it needs to continue to change and expand as we continue to go. So I'm happy to support this tonight in its current form, but I do know we are going to be having future conversations about it, whether what's working, what's not working, and what needs to change. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor.
I just had a question for
Okay.
Councillor Peter.
Okay, I'll speak last, so go for your
That's
question.
okay. I thought you might be polite and do that. Yeah. I want to understand how Donald Trump's policies, values as the President of the United States impacts Little Banyule Council in Victoria, in Australia. Don't know.
There's a couple of key themes to the Trump presidency. One is to gut all the public service of diversity, equity, inclusion, taking the word out of all policy, and organisations that support those things, they're withdrawing funding from them. We did not vote for a Trump agenda in this country, and therefore I will not be supporting the removal of important elements, the flag to our community, the important diversity, inclusion and equity elements that are critical to our functioning community, and the rationale for my
Thank you. I
comments.
appreciate you explaining it, Councillor. Thank you.
I think every councillor has spoken, so I might add a few words. And I know my microphone's a bit distorted, so I'll try not to. I naturally move in towards it. A lot of what I was going to say tonight has been said predominantly, actually, by the 7 speakers rather than the councillors. I agree with what they've had to say. The committees are about informing, involving and engaging our community, and it is about specific input on projects, services and programs. The committees do build trust. I know one of the speakers mentioned that word tonight. They invite residents to participate, and under the proposed structure, it is a different structure. It is still inclusive. It is a new way of, and as Councillor Wood mentioned, we do have to build and change what we do and not keep things exactly the same. So there was some concern that things are being removed. There will be opportunities to fill in those gaps with the working parties. I like that the structure involves champion groups without that formal meeting process, and that does allow for more people to get involved without being inhibited by structured, continuous meetings that they must be at. When you think of youth not coming to things, that does actually really support youth. I like that the committees give that opportunity for social connection as well as expertise and input. And I understand Councillor Castaldo's concerns about naming something more specifically to what it is very important, and that's okay. But I do think the terms of reference opportunity may lead to a name change. So I'm happy to endorse this with the 5 committees, our First Nations committee, which is on the other page, and the additional one, and we will review and make sure that they're working well and as needed. I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Item 3.5, CEO Employment and Remuneration Policy Review. There are no speakers on this item, and councillors, are there any questions? Yep, no questions. Moved Councillor Grotti. Do I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Champion. Councillor Grotti, do you wish to speak? Councillor Champion. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Wood.
All good. Thank you, Mayor. I valued the conversation regarding the CEO employment and remuneration. It was appropriate and diligent reflection on the arrangement, ensures good governance at the head of the organisation, which sets a standard and expectation through the entire organisation. I'm very satisfied with what I've read. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Di Pasquale.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And so councillors, as a group with HALP, did sit down on a couple of occasions and went through these policies, etc. We continually came up with it. We're very fortunate to have the CEO that we have, and the conversations were always very positive. And being a councillor for some time now, I think it's, we've been in quite a good position with regards to our CEOs. When you look at other councils who have difficulty just even communicating, the community really does suffer. So, so we are in a really good position. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Di Pasquale. Does any other councillor wish to speak? There've been minimal changes to the policy. The processes have been transparent and they're outlined in detail. For example, in preparing Council's annual review of the CEO's performance, the committee is required to submit an annual review report to Council as to whether the CEO, the extent of how the CEO's met their KPIs, or whether the criteria is varied under the performance plan, whether remuneration is varied, and any other particular items. So very well documented report. I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 3.6, record of councillor meetings. There are no speakers on this item. Councillors, are there any questions of officers? I'm now calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Champion, seconded Councillor Curry. Councillor Champion. Nothing to speak? No to Councillor Curry. Any other councillor wish to speak? I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 5.1, draft biodiversity strategy for public exhibition. There are no speakers on this item. Are there any questions? I'm now looking for a mover. Moved Councillor McKern. Do I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor O'Kane. Councillor McKern, do you wish to speak? Oh,
thank you, Mayor.
Do you have
just go through the alternative?
Okay, well, I'll slow down. Please take us through the alternative.
Yes, Mayor. There are two alternatives. The first pertains to point 1, endorses that Council endorse the draft biodiversity strategy for the purposes of a 6-week public exhibition period from 1st of April 2025 to 19th of May 2025, including a community information session for the Banyule Friends of Groups involved in public land management, explaining the draft strategy and inviting feedback. And then the addition of point 3, that Council schedule a final meeting of the Biodiversity Working Group after feedback from the public exhibition period ending on the 19th of May 2025 at an appropriate time.
Thank you, Councillor McKern. Does the seconder second those changes? Yes. Councillor McKern, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Council's biodiversity strategy is a long-term plan. I believe it's 10 years to protect our natural systems, which of course includes our Indigenous plants, animals, bushland reserves and waterways. Why do we have it? Well, firstly, we're obliged to have it under federal and state laws. And secondly, it's also an opportunity for us to show or to reflect the community's interest in our natural systems. We learn time and time again that one of the main reasons that people choose to live in Banyule is for its natural environment. The sad fact, however, is that biodiversity is in decline, not just in Banyule, but across the world. In Victoria alone, we've lost about 80 species of plants and animals, and nearly 2,000 are at risk of extinction. And as I mentioned, given that there is such importance on the part of our community for protecting our biodiversity, I'm really excited that the working group, which helped put this together over the past year, has now come up with a draft biodiversity strategy for public exhibition. I wanted to acknowledge the participants in the working group. It was made up of local environmental advocates with considerable expertise in biodiversity and led by very competent staff at Banyule who have a real passion for protecting our environment. I was really lucky to be able to chair that group, and I wish to thank everyone involved for their input to date. We do have another meeting to round off the series of working group meetings, which is why I've included the alternative motion that the working group gets to see some of the feedback that our public will no doubt contribute. In particular, I wish to thank two officers, Paul Davies and Damien Harrison, who I believe in their acquittal of their position's duties go beyond what's required and bring true professional passion to this area of biodiversity. As a 10-year plan, it will be overseen by BCAC, the Banyule Environment and Climate Action Committee, and residents who are interested in involving themselves in the progress of implementing this strategy might consider putting up their hands for inclusion on this advisory committee when applications open this month. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McKern. Does the seconder wish to speak? Does any other councillor wish? Councillor Castaldo.
I'd just like to acknowledge the work that's gone into producing this draft strategy. There's been a number of meetings, and it feels like well over a year to me, I think. It's been going for quite a long time, and acknowledge the dedication that Councillor McKern has put into that process as well. They're a very dedicated group, and this is such an important element that contributes to our urban forest strategy, and the two of them both working together will be a really important part of us moving forward on some really important subject matter in Banyule. So I'm welcoming all the feedback that comes back over the next 6 weeks. I think this will be a wonderful strategy once adopted, and we're always looking for improvements. So if you've got some ideas and comments that haven't been reflected in the draft strategy, please do submit those.
Thank you, Councillor Castaldo. Councillor Curry.
Thanks, Mayor. Just very quickly on the topic of biodiversity, I'm going to highlight one of the objectives, number 13, which is strengthen biodiversity considerations into future planning. And one of those actions is to continue to advocate for stronger biodiversity outcomes from the North East Link. And like to highlight that actually we don't know what biodiversity is being lost by the North East Link. So when we do replacement planting, we're actually matching that biodiversity to where we're doing the planting. And we need to be advocating to North East Link to be much stronger on their reporting, coming back to us and identify what has been lost through their process. And I don't think they're being clear with this. And I don't really hold out much hope that we're going to get more clarity, but it is one of the areas that we need to work harder because it has one of the greatest impacts on Banyule in the last couple of years and the next couple of years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 6.1, Victorian Government changes to planning. There are two speakers on this item. Wendy Palliser will address council in person and is speaking against the recommendation. Wendy's making her way to the lectern. Thank you, Wendy.
Good evening all, friends. I refer to a petition that has been forwarded to the Minister, Sonia Kilkenny, opposing the high-rises in Precinct 6 Heidelberg Heights, 37 homes bordered by Alfred, Edward, Montgomery and Francis Street, 2 small blocks separated by the laneway to Bell Street. We did the petition because we knew council would not comply with planning panel recommendation to obtain the views of residents in this area. The 34 residing homeowners in the area and 3 renters stand united in the petition against non-compliance of high-rise rezoning proposals that also does not meet the required guidelines for a major activity centre. The rezoning is not only incompatible with the established neighbourhood character, and we hope the Minister sees clarity and right-mindedness, and any change would set a concerning precedent and result in huge negative impact to the community. Should be GRZ5. What's happened in Heidelberg, you walk out on a balcony and you see 6 high-rise buildings looking at you. This should not happen in Heidelberg Heights, a neighbourhood character area. It should be protected. Heidelberg's open space is being touted as the cemetery, Heidelberg Cemetery. Go and walk your dog there, have lunch. Heidelberg Heights has James Park Reserve, less than 300 metres from Heidelberg Cemetery and Bell Street. That's your park. It would serve Heidelberg, the Hilltop, Heidelberg, Ivanhoe and Heidelberg Heights. It's clear when council has an agenda, they are selective in gathering of data and clearly will ignore and sidestep community views as they have done in this case. I believe the core of council or councillors of many years who influence can be seen in this council has lost their way to right-mindedness for the sake of development, stomping on neighbourhood character. There is plenty of underdeveloped areas 12 kilometres from the city that people move out to start families, and they'll have a car.
Please
we
sum
need
up,
to have
Wendy.
a clear vision for development that will not undermine neighbourhood character
Wendy,
of our city
sum up, please.
that people love.
Thank you. Councillor Champion.
I just have a question of the Speaker, Mayor.
The Speaker and Officer.
The Speaker.
Okay.
I have a question for you. Hello. I hear you.
Yes.
Have you written to your local member, is it Anthony Carbines, Heidelberg West? Yes. Have you written to the Honourable Anthony Carbines?
Kate Halsford has recommended that she will refer him to me. So we'll wait and see.
Excellent. Okay. So federal member has recommended
federal, I've
state.
learnt all that.
Fantastic. Great. Right to Anthony.
We'll see what
Carbines.
happens.
Yeah. So I will speak to this item. We hear you.
Yeah. I'd like to leave it with the council.
Our next speaker is Pippa Griffith, who will address council in person. Thank you, Pippa.
Thank you, and I'm speaking for this. I'm supporting this recommendation because I'm very glad to see it includes keeping the community informed of the planning reforms through the website. I think Banyule should have been doing this a while ago. Things are changing so rapidly in this space, and it's important that everyone has an opportunity to understand what has changed and the impact on Banyule, and also to understand how council is responding to those changes and impacts. So many of these changes are happening without proper consultation. I applaud the second part of the motion. Proper, meaningful consultation leads to better outcomes for everyone involved. Without it, there's a real danger of significant unintended consequences. However, is point 2A necessary? Do we need further reforms in Banyule when we can already accommodate the required increases thanks to the housing and neighbourhood character strategies we worked so hard on recently? What would further reform actually mean? Any problem is in the delivery, not in the approval of housing. It's right to express concern at the loss of decision-making power, not just for the Heidelberg Activity Centre, which again took significant resourcing and investment from council and the community, but in other areas too. Now to trees, canopy cover, which we see decreasing each year, and our urban forest strategy, one of those other things we took time and effort over recently. Has the government really considered how the changes they're making will impact the ability to achieve 30% canopy cover? It's their target too, and improve livability. Looking at the change Clause 55 standards, front setbacks are reduced from 9 to 6 metres. Only 10% of the site needs to have canopy cover. Both of these things will make planting large trees less likely, which then means less canopy in the public realm, increased heat island effect, negative impacts on neighbourhood character, and make achieving 30% canopy cover so much more difficult. And to close, I look forward to the report and the draft submissions on the infrastructure strategy at the next meeting of this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Pippa. Are there any questions to officers? There's an officer report before you, councillors. Do I have a mover? Move. Yep, moved Councillor Curry with some additions. Please take us through.
Thanks, Mayor. So I'm just going to start these amendments from point 2A. So recognition for the need and a removal of part of that clause, and then the addition of 4 significant housing increases. B, concern at the speed of the rollout that is at odds with enabling informed feedback from council about the impacts of these reforms. C, concern at the loss of decision-making power, including the Heidelberg Activity Centre. D, concern that the reforms are not responsive to the shared goal of retaining and promoting 30% tree canopy across Banyule. I think that was the end of them. Oh no, we're still going. Right, page 2. Okay, and down to 4, note that the council will receive a report and draft submission to the draft infrastructure strategy for Victorian at its meeting of 14th of April 2025, and that consultation remains open for the community until the 28th of April 25, which is at the Engage Victoria website for the infrastructure strategy, which is included. And down to number 6, note that a report will be brought back to council which outlines an engagement plan to assist the community in understanding the various changes being implemented as part of the Victorian Government planning reforms. Thanks, Mayor.
Moved Councillor Curry. Do I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Castaldo. Councillor Curry.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks to the Speaker. I take thank you so much for sending the emails. We've taken note of some of those changes requested. I think this area is such a changeable place at the moment. The state government is rolling out a number of reforms. I don't think our officers have had a chance to get their head around all of them, and the impact to residents is somewhat known but not fully known. But when state government is rolling out these changes and they are rolling out housing changes without the other considerations in relation to infrastructure and tree canopy, biodiversity, and setbacks, I think was another thing that I was concerned about, and the availability, the impact on our public realm, which is all important. I feel that we need to be pushing back on some of this. We need to be pushing back on state government. We want to push for our retained rights as council as primary decision makers in the planning space, and we want to ensure that our residents have input into the process of the changes coming, and also be informed of the on-the-ground impact that those changes have once they're rolled out. So we did have a number of motions that were discussed earlier. We've actually come back to this motion that's on the table. We will look at ways at delivering the message out to our residents. I am looking at a couple of options which will probably come back when the report comes back to council. And just to keep in mind that the Engage Victoria site and the infrastructure strategy, Council has no additional option to input but for the portal which is provided here. We're not getting any direct consultation with this, but I do encourage the residents to also have a look at this strategy and also do some input into the state government. It's really important that we keep our infrastructure moving along with our housing strategies. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. Councillor Castaldo.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Curry, and to Pippa Griffiths that sends us lengthy emails prior to meetings on planning regularly, and it's very valuable feedback. Now, this is a dangerous environment, I think, we as residents find ourselves in with rushed planning reforms that really do away with the many years of local construction of planning policy to reflect the variation and changes right across our municipality. We've just finished the Heidelberg Structure Plan. We've just gone out to our community and said, this is what we're seeking to do. We've got there, we've worked hard to reflect all of the things that they said. And we've adopted the planning panel's recommendations. We've done everything we could possibly do to try and meet the objectives of all stakeholders and all governing levels. But there seems to be this tremendous rush to roll out the big Melbourne agenda, the 10 million population by 2051. And then what does that mean? Does that mean we do away with all the tremendous work we've done on neighbourhood character and all the elements that we love about Melbourne? It's very concerning that the underpinnings and the reason why we're rushing this forward. So I think this is a good motion coming before us tonight, and the amendments by Councillor Curry as well are all very useful. So it is worrying. We don't know what to expect, and we want to make our community comfortable with the work that we do. And if it's just thrown out by a state government position at any point, where does that leave our residents? And I think we've got to bat for them as hard as we can on this subject matter, and I'll continue to do that all the way through.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor O'Kane.
Through you, Mayor. I also appreciate the work that Councillor Curry is doing in this space and how this motion also fits or dovetails in with the work that she has been spearheading in Council on consultation and the Future Homes initiative. I just want to mention that we are already dealing with anomalies and very difficult situations that have been brought up by plans that are going through that have gone through in the past that Council, I think, is also going to put forward amendments on and try and get changes on in the future. But this scenario is leaving some residents and developers in very difficult situations where they don't know what's going to happen in the future, and are we going to be stuck with developments that are going to stay halfway or just be out of place with what can come in the future. So I really support Councillor Curry and all the work she's doing in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Kane. Does any other Councillor Champion?
Thanks, Mayor. As promised, I am speaking to this item. I have said it before, I'm going to say it now, and I'm sure I'll be saying it again in the future. This state government is removing any planning power decision-making opportunities for every single council in Victoria. It's not just Banyule. This is another one. Wendy, this is why I'm asking you to write to Anthony Carbines, because he is the state representative. He is in a position of this. He is responsible. So everything that has been said this evening by my fellow councillors so far, I concur with. I won't reiterate. I do appreciate that we still need to continue to support our home, our community, how our areas look, our activity centres, our neighbourhood zones look, and our neighbourhood character is significant. However, it's one of those things that the state government has no interest in. I do hear some speakers this evening, I do hear that there will be some applications to our committees already. I can hear it. You all want to, those of you who are interested in planning will want to contribute. But please understand this, we are doing the best we can to support our work for you and us. It is a very hard, it's a big challenge. It's a big challenge, and all of us need to go to that link and provide our feedback, and we are all on the same page. All right, we're all using that link to go to Victoria 30-year infrastructure strategy and provide our feedback. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Champion. Does any other councillor wish to speak? No? I might make a quick couple of points. I do agree with the vision, as in housing for all Victorians, accessible jobs, thriving places, sustainable environments and caring for country. As we all know, by 2051, this means an additional 45,000 homes. I, like my fellow councillors, would also like to know the implications for Banyule in terms of infrastructure, roads, footpaths, accessibility, access to public transport, and where it's not accessible, what will those areas look like? That's a big worry of mine. When you have a word like streamlining involved, I know that word alone alarms residents in this space. And, you know, planning around activity centres, what are those impacts? And I would like to reiterate on housing, the impacts on energy, on transport, health, environmental and social infrastructure needs. How does it impact all of those things? And that's a concern for the community and council. I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? It is carried. Item 6.2, endorse plans for redevelopment of the former Ivanhoe water tank site. There are no speakers on this item. Councillors, before we move the motion, are there any questions? There's an officer report before you, as set out in the papers. I'm now calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Do I have a mover with an amendment? Do I have a mover? Moved, Councillor O'Kane. Would you like to take us through?
Through you, Mayor, I'll just start with point 3, the amendment. I propose that we write to the Honourable Anthony Carbines, member for Ivanhoe, and the Honourable Colin Brooks, member for Bundoora, expressing our disappointment that the increase in affordable housing resolved by council was not supported in the approval for this development.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Garotti. Councillor O'Kane, do you wish to speak?
Our need for social affordable housing and this particular motion that was adopted, I think it was back in August. I wasn't a councillor at the time, but I was present. Came off the talk by a very, very powerful young woman who was asking, or actually laying out the desperate need for accessible, friendly housing and affordable housing. And it's also in an area, I think, where it spreads it makes more affordable housing more available across Banyule. So it was a 5% increase. I think only probably would have equated to 3 or 4 more dwellings. Anyway, it's something that I think we would continue to put forward and also to encourage in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does the seconder wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So this came to council before the conclusion of the previous term, and I recall that there was a very passionate member of the community who addressed the council. And if I'm not mistaken, that member of the community had a disability, and took her a lot of courage and bravery to address the council. And she called and put the onus on us to increase the contribution toward affordable housing, and in particular for those in our community who need it most. And that moved us as a council to lift it to 15%. And that's what we took forward and what we hope to take forward as a council. So it's disappointing that that's been watered back down to 10%. And I think it's reasonable of us, and as suggested by Councillor O'Kane, to write to the local state member and the responsible minister in Colin Brooks, just to express that disappointment. And sometimes I wish that they were here to eyeball the people that eyeballed us, and to look at their faces and to hear their feedback. And I wonder if they experienced and saw what we did, whether they may have made a different decision on this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grotti. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Curry.
Thank you, Mayor. I've spoken on this item probably about 4 times now, standing at that lectern, talking to the councillors, requesting that this site be offered as a high value to social housing, community housing and affordable housing. The development plan overlay on this site was set by state government and has dictated the provision of up to 10% of dwellings as affordable housing. This was not as council would have liked, and so council adopted the 15%. I still think that was an incredibly low number. I think it should have been divided up into those different categories, and it should have been much more than 15%. It's interesting to note that the Minister of Planning herself designated herself as the responsible authority on the back of the recommendation by council, so that we actually didn't have the final say in the percentage of affordable housing. That is one more loss of decision making that this council is taking on. And where we don't even have influence on the state government, we really need to push that areas, and I'm grateful that we're getting this amendment up, writing to our members of Parliament and actually suggesting that they come in and meet with some of our community representatives that are in desperate need for this housing, and state-owned sites have the mandate to produce this for Banyule and everywhere else across Melbourne. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. Does any other Councillor Champion?
Thanks, Mayor. There has been a couple of references. I concur with all my fellow councillors this evening. There has been a couple of references to this being a conversation at the end of last term. This actual project has been on the table since about 2019, something like that. So that's the previous term to last. And yes, Councillor Curry has been on the other side of the lectern speaking regularly at this item. So it's been a long time coming, and we are extremely disappointed that the state taking over again another site that we've worked for many years on, come to a solution, worked with our community on a solution, and now not being considered. So I do support the motion, the alternative motion this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Champion. Does any other councillor wish to speak? I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 6.3, submission to the new planning controls for waterways. There is one speaker on this item. Michelle Jovis from Friends of Banyule will address council in person and is speaking for the recommendation. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Friends of Banyule 100% agrees with the officer recommendation. Council is unable to respond to another state government Department of Planning and Transport proposal to introduce new planning controls along 17 waterways, including our own Darebin Creek and Plenty River waterways, which fall within the Yarra Birrarung catchment. And the aim is supposedly to improve planning controls, to create wildlife corridors, protect waterways and restore the natural environment. And on the face of it, that is a good change, as stronger controls are needed along our waterways. And the new controls will include planning permits required for new developments and significant alterations. If a development is less than 50 metres from the bank of the waterway, a development above 6 metres in height in some specific areas, but what areas? And also changes to ground level of more than 600 millimetres and the removal of vegetation. However, the new planning rules do not address stormwater or flooding issues, which are increasingly a community concern. But unfortunately, Department of Transport and Planning has not provided any technical or background reports to support the introduction of the new planning scheme control or any planning maps showing the extent of the overlay, and as these are still not available. Neither has the department allowed sufficient time for the council to investigate and consult on the proposed changes. And in fact, the time for comment closed on the 16th of March, and luckily council was able to get an extension to the 26th of March, this Wednesday. And it's just appalling how the state government does planning and consultation now. I won't go on much further, but just to indicate that perhaps council should also write to the Planning and Transport Minister, as well as our local members, Carbines and Brooks, and I thought expressing dismay at the way relevant local councils have been treated and the failure to actually inform so that we can have considered feedback.
Thank you, Michelle. Are there any questions? There's an officer report. I am now calling for a motion. Moved, Councillor McKern. And I'm assuming there's no amendments. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Castaldo. Councillor McKern, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to our speaker too, who I think gave a very good summary of what the report is about and also what the state government proposes with regards to these new planning controls for 17 of our waterways in the northern region of Melbourne. Our interest, of course, is the Plenty River and the Darebin Creek, which falls within our municipal boundaries. So these proposals are definitely of interest to us. I certainly welcome consistency in planning controls when it comes to our waterways. Instead of having different planning controls kick in as waterways traverse over different municipal boundaries, it makes sense to an extent that the controls are uniform for implementation and understanding of what the controls are intended to achieve. This is as long, however, as the protection controls are not working to the lowest common denominator. As our speaker and our officers have rightly pointed out with respect to the submission, one, we've been given very limited time to respond, and two, there is potential overlap and crossing of an overlay that we already have in place to protect the environments along our waterways, and that's the Environmental Significance Overlay Schedule 1 for Banyule, which covers off on the Yarra River, Darebin Creek and the Plenty River. However, the state government is proposing a significant landscape overlay. The two overlays have slightly different aims in what they set out to achieve. The Environmental Significance Overlay, which council has in place is more about protecting the environment, whereas the significant landscape overlay considers the environment not to the same extent, but also the aesthetics of the proposal. So we heard our speaker mention what the proposals will, the proposed controls will cover off on, things like planning permits for fences, for earthworks. I think that's all very good. I certainly get complaints from our public regarding proposed developments around the Darebin Creek and the visual impact of those developments, particularly where people are putting in multi-storey dwellings. So overall, I'm hoping that these controls are going to be of benefit to this municipality. We'll find out once the review of public feedback is finalised in June, and they'll be delivered by the Minister of Planning. So I'm not sure that we're actually going to get much input into whether or not we like those controls. We'll just have to deal with the fallout, which I'm sure our planning officers will do an exemplary job of teasing out.
Thank you, Councillor. Does the seconder wish to speak?
Yeah, I think this is another positive step forward in protecting most important areas in Banyule, which is along the waterways. The waterways are the areas in which the majority of our protected public open space exists. And I'm just very grateful that those rivers exist there, because you don't find many large open spaces protected like we do along the watercourses. So these are really important to us. This submission is important. Thank officers for their work in this space, and it contributes to aligning both our biodiversity and urban forest and our waterways, and those three things are so important to Banyule and much loved by our community.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? No? I think Councillor McKern and Castaldo summed that up very well. I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 8.1, retail review outcomes. There are 3 speakers on this item. An audio message will be played to Council on behalf of Jeremy Richards from the Watsonia Traders Association, and is speaking for the recommendation.
Good evening, Mayor, Councillors, CEO, Council Officers and community members. My name is Jeremy Richards and I'm the President of the Watsonia Traders Association. I also run Watsonia Optical, and I'm here tonight representing more than 80 local businesses that make up our community. Tonight, I want to speak in support of the retail report and urge the Council to formally endorse its findings. The report highlights the importance of independent partnerships between business associations and Council, and the real impact that collaboration has on traders, the economy and the wider community. We have established a positive working partnership with Council. Having their presence in our meetings has allowed for quicker responses and solutions in time-sensitive situations. This has been critical as our volunteer-led association works tirelessly to advocate for traders while balancing our own businesses and personal commitments. The findings of this report make it clear: when business associations and Council work together, we achieve better outcomes. The advocacy funding and governance support we receive help us drive foot traffic, deliver successful marketing promotions, events and activations, and strengthen our local economy. But this work cannot continue without proper investment. We're asking Council to not only endorse this report, but to commit to the necessary financial and strategic support that ensures Watsonia remains active, resilient and competitive. A vote in favour of this report is a vote for stronger business engagement, sustainable growth and a vibrant local economy. On behalf of the Watsonia Traders Association, I want to thank you once again for your ongoing support. We look forward to working together to make Watsonia an even better place to do business and a place we can all be proud to call home. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is David Mulholland, who will address Council in person, and he's speaking against the recommendation. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Mayor. I was reading one of your ward newsletters the other day in a local cafe, it's stated that some businesses are feeling the pinch. Well, have I got some news for you? They are all feeling the pinch. Our retail sector has been smashed, first by COVID and now by a bankrupt state government, with what appears to be a never-ending grab in taxes on property, such as land tax increases up to 100% in some cases. Many of the local businesses have or are closing down in record numbers. One example from a small business I have spoken to recently, a small international food store, has been in the local strip for a long time, spending $100 per day on their electricity bill for refrigeration and lighting. Very close to just shutting up shop. Has Council interviewed any of these businesses, not only the Traders Association, before presenting this report? You may get a different result. There are now so many council charges on small business. Looking at the draft budget, chairs and tables, $320 per annum. Signs and A-frames, $226.50 per annum. An umbrella fee, $82.50 per annum. Business registration fee for a hairdresser, $238 per annum, to name a few. The report, as one of its substantive recommendations, requests an additional EFT costing $121,800. Where is the efficiency offset of this additional EFT? It is noted that $526,000, or 45% of total funds collected from the special rate and charge, is currently expended on centre manager contracts. The additional EFT required should surely come out of this allocation. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Are there any questions? Thank you. A written statement will be read out on behalf of Zach Silvestro from Ivanhoe Traders Association by Director Darren Bennett of Assets and City Services. Zach is speaking for the recommendation.
Councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. The Ivanhoe Traders Association welcomes the conclusion of a process that has spanned over 3 years. It has been a long and at times difficult journey, placing pressure on volunteer-run organisations. Being subject to an audit, while part of a broader governance uplift, was challenging and, in our view, and as BCC has acknowledged, parts of the process could have been handled better. Nevertheless, the ITA has persevered and we stand here today focused on the future. Our position on the special rate scheme has always been that we will operate under the guidance and lead of Banyule City Council. We have never deviated from that principle. We've remained steadfast in our mission to deliver innovative and prudent marketing campaigns for the Ivanhoe Shopping Centre and its members. As a volunteer committee, we've consistently set high standards and achieved beyond expectations. I speak for myself and past presidents when I say we're proud of what's been accomplished. In business life and community, reputation is everything, and we guard ours vehemently. We acknowledge that during the retail review, Council extended extra resourcing to other traded associations, support that clearly improved compliance and performance. The ITA, however, received no such support. Looking ahead, we support the proposal that Council continues to assist all 11 associations, not just financially, but through training, tools and stronger partnership. We also believe that cap on Council's contributions introduced in the mid-2010s should be reviewed, as it's added pressure to already tight budgets, as acknowledged in tonight's Council report. We trust the ITA's response to the audit findings give Council confidence and allow us to resume promoting Ivanhoe's vehement retail precinct.
Thank you to all the speakers. Question? Okay, we have a motion moved by Councillor Garotti with an amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move with 2 amendments. So on point number 4, endorse an additional 1 EFT to be funded from the existing operational budget to ensure the findings of the retail review can be comprehensively implemented with optimal performance and local economy outcomes from the 11 special rate and charges scheme. And a new point 5 for Council to receive a further report discussing appropriate and proportional centre manager budgetary allocations to be captured in a review of the marketing and management for Banyul Traders Association guideline. So moved.
Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor McKern. Councillor Garotti?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So, look, Council's undergone an extensive retail review process to look thoroughly around how those 11 special rate and charge schemes operate, the governance, the performance, the effectiveness, the efficiency. It's been a mammoth piece of work, and I think a very successful piece of work, identifying a range of opportunities which many traders associations have already implemented to improve their governance and performance, and ultimately to ensure that their own funds that they contribute as rates and which council co-contributes up to a cap are optimised for what the intent is, which is to ultimately drive activity and patronage and customers through those local retail centres. What these amendments look to do are twofold. One, in regard to point number 5, effectively seeking a report that will ensure that what the centre managers earn as a proportion of the scheme contributions is appropriate. Because I certainly have concerns if the overwhelming majority of budgets is just going to a centre manager. We want these budgets to be working for traders and working for the community and delivering tangible outcomes on the shopping strips, not just paying for centre managers. So point number 5 will pick up on that. And point number 4, one thing that we've always done as a council successfully over many years is that when officers come to us looking to do things and looking to make changes because they've done their due diligence around where they see an opportunity for additional investment, and this is one example, that we look to partner effectively with the CEO to say, well, you want to do it, that's great, we'll support you, we'll back you, you find the savings. Because ultimately, if it can't be funded within the existing operations of the council, we have to come to you, the community, with our hands open to say, well, look, it's an extra rate, it's an extra charge, or we're going to run up the deficit even further. So I'm really pleased about these 2 amendments because I think they tighten things up. One of the speakers spoke about the cost burdens and challenges being faced by business. I would really encourage that speaker to submit through the budget process because I think council could potentially look at some of those fees and charges that we're charging to business. I'm interested in having a conversation about that as part of the final budget deliberation, so I would certainly encourage that. But I suppose the key point here too is that this was about a review and improvement of how the structure of these schemes work. Every time each individual scheme will come up to council for approval, and that's an opportunity for businesses in those strips to say whether they want to be part of it or not and whether they see value for money in it or not. Okay, so I just want to clarify that point. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Does the seconder wish to speak?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the speakers and also to Councillor Garotti for his insights. The report findings emphasise the need for Council to continue to support each centre in a tailored way that meets the needs of each centre. That's actually important to acknowledge because not every centre has the same needs. And this does include the management of Ivanhoe Shopping Centre. I would like to take this moment to underscore that the report does highlight the need for continued focus on compliance on the rules within the scheme, financial management and transparency for all of Banyul's trader associations, the change for which has been pretty rapid for the vast majority of our centres. It's also noted that further work is needed, as has been raised by one of our speakers, to create more templates, guidance notes and supporting documents as a reference point for our associations. They need to know that they're not alone and that they are supported by council. Ongoing work is needed to continue to nurture relationships with traders, associations and centre managers. The role of council on the association needs to be redefined to be a non-voting member of the association to remove any actual or perceived conflicts of interest. And the focus of council staff needs to evolve into capacity building while still ensuring compliance and adherence to the funding agreement. So some traders will need support to move into placemaking and more innovative approaches, and I look forward to seeing the findings of the report shared and debriefed with all trader associations. To see that, and Mr Walters will be happy to hear this, good governance practice remains a key focus. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McKern. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Castaldo.
Yeah, I'd just like to acknowledge the significant journey we've been on. And along this journey, there's been quite a few concerned people, particularly centre managers, about us working against the long-established communities that each one of our centres have had. And tonight we reaffirm our commitment to actively participating as a true partner in a balanced way and measured way through a better set of rules, governance, to set the conditions for a positive, constructive and a successful journey forward as much as we can. And I think it was well overdue, this process of review, because we were handing over very significant amounts of money to community organisations. We had very little insight into how they were operating, where the money was going. So I think this journey has put us in a much better place, and I think there'll be a few happy centre managers tomorrow hearing the outcome of the review and what I think will be passed tonight, and I'll be fully supporting this moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to speak? I'll add a few comments. The evolution of shopping, I think, continues to transform, and as the report says, the shift to online has negatively impacted stores. There's a decrease in independent retailers and an increase in office and service-related businesses, and the right support needs to be given for these reasons to our traders associations, like business development support, like financial literacy, like digital support. Traders, will need to be innovative and, offer attractive options for customers to physically walk in and not just sit at home and shop online. And, things that could be convenience or quality, really good quality, or a speedy service. I do like to encourage people to shop local for all of these reasons and, to support our local economy, but also, remember the benefits of in-person shopping. Not that people want to know my shopping habits, but I do like in-person shopping. I do not shop online, or very rarely. unless you're buying tickets or something. But I really do like, on a serious note, the bespoke approach in this report, that support for each centre is based on need and that the focus is on innovation and activation. I also do support removing the voting right of the officer to remove any perceived conflict of interest. I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 9, our notice of motion on the cost of living and housing challenges. There are 4 speakers on this item. Oh, 3 speakers, sorry. Okay, sorry. There are 3 speakers. The first speaker is Brendan Murphy from Bread Hub Victoria. Hello, Brendan. He will address council in person and is speaking for the recommendation. Thank you.
Hi. Oh, sorry, Mayor. Hi, everyone. Brendan, co-president and co-CEO Bread Hub Victoria. We're an international charity. We started in my driveway in Bundoora. Now we're an international charity a year and a half later. We'd sincerely like to apologise to the 30,000 Victorians sleeping rough or experiencing homelessness this very night. I guess I just want to talk about Lou. I met Lou just at Norris Bank, Yulong Park, sleeping in his car. He unfortunately, had a bit of a family breakdown. He's been sleeping in his car since Christmas time, and he has showers at BP stations because he used to be a truck driver. Lou's current situation is he got a little bit of hotel accommodation just in Kingsbury for 3 nights. He's waiting to, in a couple of weeks, he's being assessed to get his name on a list for a housing agency in Preston, which potentially means that he goes on a waiting list for 6 months and then further potentially to get housing maybe in 2 years' time. And that's the current state that we're in when it comes to housing. So Bread Hub Victoria would like to apologise to Lou. We'd like to apologise to Mohammed that was sleeping rough at Yulong Park, and to Gavin, all our citizens that are sleeping rough. We have citizens in Burgundy Street. We have citizens sleeping in tents in West Heidelberg by the waterways. So it's good to hear about the bushlands. I hope you guys don't mind tents being by the waterways and trees, because that's what's going on. You might need to plan that. Our greatest asset in the community is us, our people, and we really want to support Councillor Rick. Thank you for highlighting this. Thank you, Councillor Rick.
Thank you, Brendan. Chris Parr will address council in person and is speaking for the recommendation. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors and CEO. Speaking as the Liberal candidate for Jagga Jagga, I fully endorse this notice of motion put forward by Councillor Garotti. In my travels around our electorate, I can share with you that there is indeed many people and families who are homeless and sleeping rough. And firstly, I would urge any councillor who has not already done so to visit some of these sites to experience for yourself firsthand the sheer vulnerability of our fellow citizens. Whether they are under bridges, at the Mall, in car parks, or rough in the night in doorways after hours, this issue is the second biggest issue, only to the cost of living, facing the entirety of Jagga Jagga. Many neighbourhood houses that I visit, like the one in Green Hills, for example, are now geared up to provide food for families, with people like Brendan and Bernard from Diamond Valley Food Share, the NEFRI Food Rescue Market operating out of the McLeod Scout Hall. These are everyday people, vulnerable people and families who, instead of going to the supermarket to buy groceries, are doing their food shopping at these organisations instead. Several of my Liberal campaign team members have assisted me in providing or donating sleeping bags and blankets. And Council would do well to note that whilst the weather has been fine of late, the winter months are fast approaching. May I suggest, as a cost-effective measure, perhaps council may be of some assistance by providing these and other organisations assisting with this massive issue around vulnerable families by offering Watermark, Ivanhoe Aquatic Centre or Olympic Village passes to keep these families connected and engaged in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Our next speaker, Melissa Murphy-Webster, in writing or in person? In person? Thank you. Melissa is speaking for the recommendation.
So forgive me, I had tech problems, so I'm going to be reading off my phone tonight. The cost of living crisis is a phrase that saddens me greatly. It just makes no sense why it's so expensive for people to live and to survive. Australians pay tax at least 4 times in every dollar they earn, on their earnings, purchases, savings, and multiple times on possessions like homes and vehicles. In 2021, it was recorded that Australians were paying 125 separate taxes at local, state and federal level, which too often impoverishes our most vulnerable people. Families are spending less and less quality time together as parents work longer hours to pay for the things they deem necessary to live and be part of society. Many couples who are divorcing no longer have the ability to move away from each other, needing to remain in the same house due to the financial strain of just living. Thousands of people are living out of their cars and many more are sleeping on the streets or in makeshift shelters. In Australia, over 122,000 individuals are homeless today, with women and Indigenous communities disproportionately affected. I heard that some councils have been finding rough sleepers, and I'm appalled by that lack of compassion and hope this will never occur in Banyule. I would like to note that in my interaction with Salvation Army during my previous occupation, they showed that moving on is also not a solution. There are not enough services to help these people in need. I do understand this is considered outside the direct remit of council. However, every little charge, fee or fine that is put out by councils impact residents and the visitors to the area. This is why it is important that obsolete programs and waste are removed from council spending. And I'm glad that Councillor Garotti is starting a real conversation about this, as this is a human rights issue, and it would be good to see Banyule pioneer a proactive response to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Are there any questions of officers?
Yeah, just a question for the relevant officers. Have we been doing work in this space already, and what is the briefing coming up shortly for councillors?
The Director, Joseph.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thanks for the question, Councillor Castaldo. Several years ago in 2023, Council adopted an advocacy position to heighten the work that could be addressed in the housing and homelessness space that sits on Council's website. In the same year, a homelessness protocol was established whereby the organisation has a set of guiding principles in terms of how we deal with matters of homelessness across the municipality. It's fair to say that at the time when that was established, homelessness was not an issue within the local municipality, and so we've learned and observed that there's some improvements can be made in that space. In late 2024, there was a homelessness roundtable which was established. In fact, there were 2 homelessness roundtables which occurred. There were probably around about 40 or so actions that came from that particular roundtable, and those actions are currently being worked through by Council and its partners. There is also some other work happening in the background which will be presented to Council as early as next week.
Thank you. Councillor Wood, a question.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, to the relevant director, just going a bit further with what you were just talking about. Can you detail the status of the citywide risk assessment into homelessness?
Through you, Mayor, thank you for the question, Councillor Wood. So in the process of looking at Council's existing homelessness protocol, we've undertaken a risk assessment, and that's to ensure that we're providing for a safe workplace for our officers in conducting their work. We have a legal obligation in that space. There is quite a comprehensive piece of work that is underway in that space. In terms of the quantum, we're talking over 100 individual risks, so controls are being established for each of those so that we can be effective and agile in responding to this particular issue. Again, this will be presented to Council as early as next week.
Just one more, just interested to know the work that's happening in the Mary Outreach Service. If there's any detail on that.
Through you, Mayor. So in late 2024, in fact, during the caretaker period, Mary Outreach Support, whom Council has an existing relationship with for some homelessness support work, were engaged to do some additional analysis for Council to quantify the severity and the increasing reports which were being received. That information is informing a report and a briefing to Council on options available to Council and the community to address this issue.
Just pausing for any more questions. Okay, there's an officer report on the agenda papers. Moved with some amendments. Councillor Garotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So just moving some amendments to pick up some feedback from councillors. So that Council receives a report discussing the issues of homelessness and the broad spectrum of causative factors, including cost of living pressures, and B, provides options for further Council support or actions that would aid the community and includes advocacies to various levels of government for their support or funding in identified needs. Note that housing and homelessness was identified and resolved upon as a key priority in 2023-24. So moved, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Curry. Councillor Garotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think this is, very pleased to be bringing this to Council through a notice of motion. I would like to call out one of our speakers, Brendan Murphy. I met Brendan by chance probably around this time last year, and Brendan took me to Bundoora Square, which is just outside the boundary of Banyule. And I was embarrassed at myself. I've been a councillor for 12 years. I'd not really had much to do at Bundoora Square. And we walked around and we met citizens, and many of them who sleep rough in Yulong Reserve, which is in Banyule. And I think that triggered an emotional response in me, because there are people that, I'm a councillor, I live, I work, I raise my family, jump in and out of the car, go the day-to-day business. And I was driving past Bundoora Square every single day to go to work, the privilege to work, and not realising the problems and the challenges that are there. So I sincerely want to thank Brendan for opening my eyes up. And I actually also want to extend an apology myself to the community for having overlooked that issue for 12 years. But just because you've made a mistake in the past doesn't mean that you can't fix things in the future. And I am deadly serious about this issue, and I know that the rest of the council is as well. I certainly hope so, because we know that many members in our community are doing it tough, and there are a range of factors behind that. We're doing a lot of work as a council, and I think that's important to highlight, and we are going to get a report back. But I think it was very important to table this as a notice of motion to show the community, to show our officers, to show the staff that are listening in, this is serious. This is council level 1 priority. I'm really looking forward to the report coming back. There are limits to what we can do as a council, but we will push and pull and I will advocate as hard as I can for us to do as much as we can, because we know people in our community are doing it hard, they're doing it tough. But again, thank you, Brendan, for opening my eyes up, and to colleagues, to members in the gallery, to people listening in at home. I'd be very happy if you want to accompany me and Brendan and others and to go and meet and interact with some of those that are doing it tough, and to open your eyes and to open our eyes. We're all in this together. Let's work on this together, and let's get a report back from Council to help that process along. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grotti. Councillor Curry.
Thanks, Mayor. I support the notice of motion. It's good to see this in the clarity that it's shown here. Council could be doing a lot more in this space, and I note that the amendments come with a lot of collaboration from other councillors to my left and my right. We are very serious about this issue. It is one of our key priority areas for Banyule this year. I'm just foreshadowing that I'll bring a notice of motion to do the housing, the understanding of the social housing and affordable housing probably in the next meeting, so that we can have a look at from both sides. I'm also aware that our most vulnerable women are definitely disproportionately impacted here. And who else is impacted is our renters. So as much as council can take actions and rate relief and waivers and things like that, it's our renters that are probably doing this hardest, because when you stop being able to afford rent, you're losing your rights, and I think that's having a huge impact. So this report is going to highlight where some of those causative factors come from, and the cost of living, and where that is impacted through council directly and indirectly. And I'd also like to identify make note of those round tables and those important work that has been done in the last couple of years. These are what's informing us now. I suspect that there's a lot more information and a committee that's on the ground that can help us understand these issues with the service providers, so BANSIC, Mary Health, I know there's a new name for Mary Health now. Holstep, thank you. So I look forward to more information and seeing what we can do in the space with absolutely strong advocacy in these issues to the other levels of government. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. Councillor O'Kane.
Through you, Mayor. I want to thank Councillor Grotti for bringing this notion to Council. I would also like to acknowledge that this motion has the support of everybody, I think, on the council. It is going to be a group effort to take some what am I trying to say? I'm sorry. Some effective action. As a resident of West Heidelberg, I am surrounded every day by homelessness. I have emergency homes in my court, and I know every single person that comes through that court, I know and I understand how long they've been on the streets and what it's taken for them to get there. I live near the Darebin Creek. I see people down there all the time. Often they actually don't want interaction because they're fearful of what somebody might do. I have helicopters hovering above and circling above almost every day looking for people who are homeless. So I think we're aware of what some of the issues are and engagement with some of the people, but I just want to say it just hardens my resolve to the commitment of this issue, and I really look forward with this council group to getting stuck into effective action. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Kane. Does any other Councillor McKern?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I do too appreciate this being brought to Council out of Councillor's serious concern for a growing number of homeless people in our city. I've had reports, more so in the last year or so than previously, of people in our community sleeping rough in Chelsworth Park, establishing campsites, lighting fires, and that certainly raises risk issues associated with sanitation and the possibility of bushfires and the safety of not only those people who are sleeping like that and living in these makeshift campsites, but also for the community living in that area and for the health of our parks. I've also had reports from traders in our local shopping centre advising me that that there are people sleeping in doorways of our shops. So, and that's only, as I said, fairly recently. And so it does probably add weight to the increasing number and the increasing visibility of homeless people in our community. I do want to mention too that while this NOM is bringing the issue to public attention, as mentioned by Councillor Garotti, we can't forego what has actually been happening by our officers. We've been working with outreach programs for some time now, and also partnering, and some good examples, positive examples that the community needs to be aware of, including our partnering with Launch Housing to create social housing for 58 residents in Belfield, and also the possibility of having slowed down the drift of homelessness by our inclusive employment program and social enterprise program. That can't be overlooked, how we may have actually helped people not become homeless. So I certainly look forward to the report coming back as to how we might advocate and partner to provide more support services, as well as what we can do within our own remit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKern. Councillor Castaldo.
Yeah, I'd like to acknowledge the work that's gone on over the number of years, but it is an ever-growing challenge. And I fully take responsibility as one level of government to form partnerships with all other levels of government to provide stable housing for every single person in this country. It's absolutely essential we do that. And we all have different roles to play, and we need to have good partnerships. And I think we've heard some of those partnerships that we've established and grown, because some pretty terrible things have been happening in the last couple of years. And I don't want to draw attention to any one of them, but it's significant and something that needs to be dealt with seriously. So I think this is a good addition to bringing focus and attention to an important area of council tonight, and I'll be fully supportive of this along with the rest of the other work, and look forward to being a constructive partner to get every one of those people that is living homeless into a stable, secure home into the future as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Castaldo. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm grateful that this conversation's been brought to the chamber. It's an extraordinarily important and sensitive topic, and it requires the utmost care, respect and attention from everybody. It's given me an opportunity to dive in as a first-time councillor to the work that's been done by council, and we've heard tonight it's quite extensive. Of course I'm supportive of this motion, but I can't help but share some criticism of what we're putting up as a group. The inference made in the NOM in the background is suggesting that we're only just embarking on this. We've heard tonight that we're not. The efforts are extensive. I'd hope that as of the briefing next Monday night, that we're not duplicating or diluting our efforts with this motion. I'm sure the officers will manage that. The other inference made here, in my view, is that homelessness is largely a result of costs outweighing income, being cost of living. However, the motion really needs to be better and strengthen its reference to the root causes, which in my opinion include family violence, substance abuse and mental health more broadly. Of course, not limited to those. We've heard from Director Vacco tonight, and some of the other councillors have added some information which has been really good for me. So I'm looking forward to the briefing next Monday and where we can take this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Councillor Champion.
Thanks, Mayor. Just briefly. I actually have the privilege of speaking with lots and lots of people every week. And I ask a couple of questions. One of them is, how are you guys going? How's your family going? And another question that I ask people is, how's business? And responses I receive from the small business owners is, I'm noticing that people don't come and see me as often. They are reducing their services. They let their private health insurance repayments run out, so there's about 6 months' worth where they don't get treatment. I have clients who say, I'm actually really grateful that I can actually afford my mortgage repayments. There are those who can't do that. We've just had a speaker this evening mention that there are couples, there are families staying together under the same roof for economic reasons. That's actually a form of homelessness, because you've got a person in that relationship who is not home. That is not their home anymore. They are there under duress, and that is not good for their health or their social environment. Those are examples of homelessness as well as sufferance in this economic circumstances that we're in right now. So just wanted to make it clear that we're just not looking at people in sleeping bags in shopping centres. There are people who are couch surfing. We may never know who they are. And the concern that I have is that not everyone is going to formally identify as being homeless, because they believe if they've got somewhere to sleep that's safe and out of the weather, that they are actually in a home. So that's my real concern. But we'll obviously see what happens with the feedback. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Champion. On the thread that Councillor Champion was on the types of homelessness, the number of people facing long-term homelessness has surged greatly over the last 5 years. And the other increase I wanted to mention was from employed homelessness. I know Brendan Murphy from Bread Hub mentioned Lou, who is someone employed but in this situation of homelessness. And as we know, it's at a critical level. And there are, I'd like to mention, fantastic support services out there, people doing amazing work to help. However, they're overrun by increased demand. And for me, there needs to be more investment in these support services from all levels of government, as well as affordable housing. Those services are that critical connection. I won't go on because I think everyone summed it well, and thank you to the speakers tonight and I'm not finished, let me finish. And thank you, Councillor Garotti, for raising this.
Thank you, Man. If I may, I just wanted to sum up. One of my colleagues, I feel, questioned my motivation for bringing it to the council, and I find that disrespectful, and I'm going to call that out. The councillor suggested that because of all this work that's happening by officers, that there was no need to bring this to council. And a reference was made to work being done by Mary Outreach Support Services. Well, the whole reason that Moss is engaged is because at the Banyule Community Ball, I was approached by Brendan and a number of other service providers, and I convened a meeting on the spot at that ball with Joseph Tobacco and Alison Beckwith and said, we need to do something. And as a consequence, Alison and Joseph recognised the need and brought in Moss. So councillors do have a role. This work of officers just doesn't magically happen. We as the elected representatives, we bring the priorities here, we set the priorities for the council, and we make things happen. And to just suggest that these things magically happen and we don't need to bring notices of motion is disrespectful. And I'm going to continue to bring these issues to the chamber. I'm going to continue to be a passionate advocate, because that is how things get done. And one final thing I want to point out is that Father Stephen Monsieur at the Bundoora Anglican Club, the Bundoora Anglican Church, He is convening a meeting on the 6th of May to present a model of what's worked, and I'm going to extend that invitation to councillors and officers to join us and to learn what's happening, and I will take some of the councillors across the road as well, if you're interested, and open your eyes to the issue. But things happen because the community, in people like Brendan and councillors like us, we bring things to the table and we make it happen. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. We're going to now move to items of general business. We have a few councillors with items. I might start with Councillor Di Pasquale, has 2 items.
Thank you, Mayor. You've caught me off guard. I do have some wording which
I can come back to you if you like.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, Councillor McKern, you have 1 item.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'd like to spruik for the Chelsworth Community Meeting, which is coming up on Thursday, the 1st of May. 6:15 for a 6:30 p.m. start at Ivanhoe Library in the usual location, one of the U3A rooms. We've been running these meetings now successfully for a number of years, in fact 4 years, and they're growing with each meeting we run, which shows that they're of interest to the community. We're raising topics that are pertinent to the community, and we also give the opportunity for our community to ask questions and have them answered by myself and senior officers. And I've been delighted and thank our CEO, Alison Beckwith, who has accompanied me, I think, on just about every single meeting, which has been really helpful because she has tremendous oversight as to what is going on within the workings, the in-depth workings of council. And also it's an opportunity for the community to see officers and councillors working together towards constructive solutions and showing real interest in our community concerns. I'm also going to take the opportunity on this occasion to just give a bit of a brief as to particular topics that have come up time and time again, like Ivanhoe RSL, what is happening there. So I'll be chatting briefly about that, not to take up too much time because the evening is about listening to you, our residents. And as I mentioned, 6:15 for 6:30 start. The first 15 minutes is about social connection and members of our community meeting each other and an informal gathering over a cuppa, which of course tea, coffee and a light supper will, as always, be provided courtesy of your ward councillor. So I look forward to seeing as many people there as possible, and I do invite all members of our community, Banyule community, as I do all our councillors, to our community meetings, because at this point in time, as far as I'm aware, I'm the only councillor running them. But I'm hoping that a few more councillors start them in this term, and I see at least one enthusiastic nod of a head across the floor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McKern. Councillor Di Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry for the delay. On Saturday, 15th of March, I was privileged to attend the swimming long course qualifying meet at Watermark. DBE Aquatic hosted the event and they welcomed 251 swimmers, 132 girls and 119 boys aged 8 to 18, along with one 30-year-old male competitor, all striving to qualify for the Victoria Metro All Junior Championship in April. Events like this bring hundreds of local families, volunteers and spectators through the doors, showcasing just how vital this facility is to the wider community. We'd also like to mention we have had some international swimmers also coming from these ranks. Also, on Saturday just last, I and many in the community attended the Watsonia Primary School 65th anniversary celebrations and fair. There were many past students and displays of historical material about the school's past 65 years, Congratulations to all involved, especially Megan, the school council president, and her support team. And I probably don't have to mention they are being severely impacted by the North East Link works, getting on with it, supporting each other, and they'll be bigger and stronger in the next 65 years. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor O'Kane.
Through you, Mayor, thank you. I have two items which I'll be very quick about, and I'm very sorry that I didn't get my slideshow going either. I liked the photos that Councillor Di Pasquale had. The first is that the iftar dinner was held at the Bell Street Mall, organised by the Bell Street Traders Association. It was an absolutely fabulous night. It was attended also by Councillor Champion, Councillor Curry, and also Councillor Castaldo. It was food, it goes without saying, was absolutely delicious. Absolutely gorged myself more than I should have. However, the real highlight of the night was the genuine community feel and spirit. It was outdoors, it was breezy, it was airy, it was a beautiful temperature, and people just really rose to the community spirit of that. There were at least 20 volunteers who were serving food at breakneck speed. Particular thanks goes to Maha Bitsa, Kate Farrelly and Stavros and Cersei Zico for organising it. I think they pulled it together in less than 2 weeks. And also a very quick shout out, because I didn't do it at the time, to Craig Langdon, who has attended every single one of the 11 iftar dinners that have been held there. So yeah, amazing event. And side by side with that was the Lantern Festival at Malahang, which was on the Friday and Saturday night. And the most magical event I could ever imagine. And I wish it was held every year, but that's, I think, something that I'll probably ask the officers about last year. And if you haven't been, please go. Please go.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to bring to attention that North East Link have just released another round of community grants, and perhaps one for Brendan Murphy and his team and the Watsonia School that just came up. There's $10 million available with applications closing April 29, and they're sponsoring community projects up to $100,000. Interestingly, it listed the priority suburbs of Bundoora, Greensborough, Heidelberg, McLeod, Rosanna, Viewbank, Watsonia and Yallambee specifically of interest. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Castaldo.
Just like to mention there's a number of important events that occur between council meetings, and just raise one here on the fly, the Ageing Well Housing Forum, which was very well attended, about making sure we have good housing stock and important support for people that are wishing to age in place in Banyule and live a good life in the new housing that may be more suitable to them into the future. And also the Northern Business Achievement Awards breakfast that was on as well. Another opportunity to encourage businesses to be well supported and have a long life into the future, because there's a lot of people that want jobs in Banyule. We've got to make sure we've got a healthy economy as well. So that's another important piece of work that Council is involved with.
Thank you, Councillor Costello. I'll just follow on from that. Council ran an urban forest community forum, and it was very well attended by councillors and the community. Council is developing our nature strip guidelines, and it's a great opportunity to enhance our urban environment. And with the guidelines, we're giving residents a clear, accessible way to plant and care for vegetation on their nature strips, which is something, you know, new and exciting. We're focusing on increasing tree canopy in public spaces, and we have tree planting initiatives, but we know that private land makes up 70% of our urban forests, so we have to really maximise opportunities in this space. So really amazing feedback from the community and lots of ideas, and everyone's got a different thought on what they'd like to see, and that was all captured by the officers. So thank you to the officers as well for their hard work. Another event I attended was the Holy Celebration with the Northern Region Indian Seniors Association, and that was at Ilch. And if you don't know what that is, Holi is an Indian festival of colours, a Hindu cultural celebration that signals a new beginning where people can release their inhibitions and make a fresh start. I mean, I didn't release my inhibitions at the festival. I was very controlled and respectful. But such a vibrant, beautiful celebration that I was very privileged to be a part of. Councillor Castaldo has another one.
Yeah, there's another one. Baba Nambeek, we met with the Indigenous custodians as well just this week, another important stakeholder group, really important meetings, listening to people, not just through committees, but also through very important events that are ongoing.
Councillor McKern.
Just a quick one. I wanted to add, which I had forgotten, if you are intending to join into our community meeting on the 1st of May, could you please email me questions or topics you'd like to see addressed at the meeting, so that we can start to schedule them in, and also ensure that we have the right officers to respond to your queries. So please get me your questions or topics of interest well before the 1st of May. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKern. We have two more, and then we'll move on to public questions. Councillor Champion, then Councillor Curry.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'm very disappointed you didn't release your inhibitions. Very disappointing. Anyway, you and I attended the Lower Plenty Football Netball Club season launch, along with Vicky Ward, the state member for Eltham, and Kate Thwaites, the federal member for Jaga Jaga. The launch came off the back of a very successful 2024 season where the club had 3 premiership wins. So 3 different teams achieved premierships in 2024. Congratulations to all who contributed to the club's turnaround, and to the President, Michael Maloney, for his leadership. The Lower Plenty Football Netball Club is the only local club with 2 all-abilities teams, almost able to make 3 teams, but not quite. They actually do need some volunteers to assist, which I'll mention shortly. Now, we had a keynote speaker that morning, which was, we were inspired by Chloe McArdle. If you don't know who Chloe McArdle is, she is the Australian lady who swam the English Channel 44 times. I asked why, and she said she just could. She could. She created a personal challenge and she made up her mind to achieve it. It also gave her the excuse to eat lots of cake. So, something you can do, eat lots of cake, go swimming. Thank you to the Heidelberg Golf Club for providing beautiful dawn views as always, and for the Bendigo Bank for for continuing their major sponsorship. Now, the club is calling out for volunteers to assist with the current 2 all-abilities teams. Anything from tying shoelaces for the players to prepping meals for post-matches. Please contact the club directly, or you're welcome to get in touch with me at council if you would like to contribute to the success of these teams. And sponsorship opportunities are also available on the Wednesday, the 2nd of April, for the feeder launch at Clifton Hill. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Champion. Councillor Curry.
Thank you, Mayor. Very quickly, I'd just like to offer congratulations to Councillor O'Kane at the IFTA dinner. Did a very heartfelt, warm speech, and I think we're all in awe of that speech, so thank you. I was also attended the Lantern Festival and enjoyed the First Nations dance / neon paint works that was going on that night, so we really had an enjoyable time. So there was a lot going on in Heidelberg West at that time, but congratulations, well done.
Thank you, Councillor Curry, and thank you to all councillors for sharing what you've been doing in the last few weeks. That's only the last few weeks, so very busy. We have 6 public questions, and if any members of the public are in the gallery who have a public question, they're welcome to approach the lectern and ask their question when their name is read out. And if you are not present, your question will be submitted in writing. The first question is from Maggie Day of Heidelberg West. Is Maggie here? No, so that will be responded to. Thank you. Our next question is from David Mulholland in Ivanhoe. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, as a brief introduction, Council announced last year that a community battery was to be installed at the Belfield Community Hub. I noted on the Gemina webpage that this community battery was expected to be installed mid-2024, but no further update. So my question is, can Council advise when this community battery was installed, where it is located and how much it is saving Council in electricity costs?
Director Swan will respond.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So Gemina Electricity Networks has been awarded up to $2 million in funding to deliver community batteries through the Australian Government's Community Batteries for Household Solar program. One of these batteries will be installed in Belfield, albeit within the suburb, not just for the community hub. The Gemina battery has not yet been installed, but is due for installation in late April or early May of this year. The battery is being installed at Cyril Cummins Reserve in Belfield. Gemina advises that the community battery will store excess power generated from rooftop solar during the day and will make it available to the wider community during peak times at night. This means that all customers connected to the local network will have access to the renewable energy, not just those with rooftop solar. The battery will also help stabilise the electricity grid by soaking up excess solar during the day and reducing demand on the grid during peak times later in the day. Whilst it will not have any direct savings for council, the battery will result in enhanced power capacity in that local neighbourhood, allowing more residents in the area to install solar consistent with our Community Climate Action Plan. Thank you.
The next question is from Kevin Hill from Ivanhoe, who is not in the gallery, so he will be provided with a response. Our next question is from Melissa Murphy-Webster from Watsonia North. Thank you, Melissa.
Since the beginning of the Visy Container Deposit Scheme, how much plastic and glass by each of the metrics council uses to measure waste has been diverted away from the Banyule Waste Station? For instance, the weight or cost to process or whatever metrics involved. Can I get a breakdown for each 4 plastic and glass containers?
Thank you, Melissa. This is to be answered by Darren Bennett, Director of Assets and City Services.
The Container Deposit Scheme is a state-led scheme, with Visy being one of 3 providers across the state of Victoria. The Banyule Transfer Station does not typically receive products that are within the scheme unless they're received in the red-lidded waste bin or the yellow-lidded commingled bin. The content of the yellow bin is received by Visy at the Waterdale Road Depot. Given Council does not manage the scheme directly, it's not possible to provide the requested information. However, Visy have provided a high-level estimate of the volumes of the CDS tonnage that's been collected in Banyule. It's an estimate only, but I'm happy to share that. So across Banyule, the total containers is estimated at 14.4 million, which equates to 734 tonnes. And a breakdown of that is cans is 7 million, which is 96 tonnes. Cartons is 350,000, which is 4.5 tonnes. Glass, 2.7 million containers, which equates to 529 tonnes. And plastic is 4.2 million containers, which equates to 104 tonnes.
Thank you. Our next question is from Wendy Palliser from Heidelberg Heights.
forgot my question, but anyway, my concerns is for James Reserve and the money that's been spent for the Little Socceroos to play there. They were there on Sunday, and on Sunday there's 33 sports grounds available, and a lot of those sports grounds need upgrading. So the relevance of spending a lot of money on Little Socceroos running around our ground, we don't mind, but is there a balance of your economics there? In regard to James Reserve, so my question is, what is the dollar amount the ratepayers have paid, and what amount has the soccer club paid to council for the use and works and maintaining of James Reserve year to date? And if you can give a total cost for the last 2 years.
Thank you, Wendy. This is to be answered by Darren Bennett, Director of Assets and City Services.
Thank you. 204,000 was spent within the 2023-24 financial year renewing the irrigation system on the plain surface. Both the toilet and the playground are being renewed this financial year at a cost of approximately $1 million. This investment in infrastructure is directly linked to the priority theme in the council plan under our valued and community assets and facilities. And Banyule is planning to ensure our parks, facilities, playgrounds and sports grounds are well maintained and accessible to all. In addition, council spent about $12,500 on maintenance of the plain surface between March 23 to March 24, and just under $16,000 between March 24 and March 25. The winter season allocation fee for the soccer club is approximately $4,000 per annum, as per Council's Sporting Facility User Guide and Allocation Policy.
Thank you. The next question is from Roger Fife from Ivanhoe.
My question, I've specified it in terms of Ivanhoe because it avoids any conflict with any of the other matters that might be discussed. State government policy increasingly mentions use of car sharing schemes in suburbs well provided with public transport options. Specifically, Ivanhoe has a railway station and 3 bus services. It also has a residential parking permit scheme adopted by Banyule Council that covers parking restrictions that apply. What has changed since the residential parking permit policy for Banyule was brought in by Council is that we are now not only getting for-hire private companies using parking areas, but we're also getting individuals who have offered through companies their own private vehicles registered in their names, entitled to residential parking permits for use by other individuals. So my question, in the years since the current residential parking permit scheme was adopted, there have been an explosion of new participants in car share schemes, including where private vehicle owners offer their vehicles for short-term hire. To precisely what extent does the current residential parking permit scheme reflect this diversity of ride-share/hire options?
Thank you, Roger. This will be answered by Natasha Swan, Director of City Development.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Our Council updated its on-street parking management framework in July 2024 and is currently finalising a Banyule car share policy and guidelines. These documents are possibly more relevant to the question and reflect the current diversity of ride-share hire options, as eligibility for a parking permit under the Banyule Residential Parking Permit Scheme only applies to a resident of the municipality and as such doesn't apply to a car share provider. And further to that, if a private resident is making their private vehicle available for people to use, but they are a resident of the property, then they are entitled to a residential parking permit.
Thank you. The next ordinary meeting of council will be held on Monday, the 14th of April. In accordance with section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020, the meeting will now be closed to members of the public for the consideration of 2 confidential matters. Can I please have a councillor move and second for the council to close the meeting to members of the public prior to considering confidential items? Moved, Councillor Champion, seconded, Councillor Curry. All those in favour? The motion is carried. So I just wanted to thank everyone for coming this evening. Have a lovely evening. We have to keep working.